When Tom Jones took the stage in Las Vegas in 1975, he was dressed differently and singing a tune that no one had ever heard before. Everyone was surprised by what transpired next. The audience began jeering. Drinks were thrown. A few even left. The irate mob screamed, "Go home," and security forced to remove him away. Tom didn't perform for 6 months because he was so distraught. The worst thing, though, it wasn't even his singing that made them despise him. For 48 years he concealed something far deeper. On June 7, 1940, Tom Jones was born in Treforest, a tiny South Wales town close to Pontypridd. His mother ran the household while his father, like many males in their neighborhood, toiled deep below as a coal miner. Although difficult, life was close-knit. The culture included music, and even as a little child, Tom's voice appeared to reflect that. Tom's future would be significantly different from his father's original dream, that he would work in the mines like him. Everything changed when I was 12 years old. At the time, TB was a dangerous ailment that Tom contracted. He was unable to go outside or live like a typical child, so he was forced to spend 2 years in bed. Later on, he described it as the darkest period of his life. However, something else began to develop in that empty bedroom. His passion for music. He spent his days listening to the radio since he had little else to do. He listened to music by American rock and roll and blues performers, such as Elvis Presley and Little Richard. He was seized by their sound. He began to hear the type of music he would eventually sing. Tom wasn't really interested in classes or sports when he eventually went back to school, but his voice was already making an impression. He sung so passionately and loudly at assemblies that teachers had to advise him to slow down. He was singing the Lord's Prayer like a gospel singer, and one music teacher even questioned why. He was obviously doing something new and daring, and others took note. He was prepared to pursue the goal that had been developing within of him for years, when he finally dropped out of school at the age of 16. In March 1957, Tom Jones wed Linda Trenchard, his high school girlfriend. At the age of 16, they were both expecting their son Mark. Their romance, however, began much earlier. At the age of 8, Tom first encountered Linda, and he fell in love immediately. Years passed as he pursued her, and at the age of 15, she eventually consented to date him. They were married for over 60 years, until Linda passed away in 2016. She had fought cancer 3 times and was 75 years old. They remained together through it all. Nevertheless, during his ascent to stardom, Tom was candid about his infidelity. He acknowledged having sex with hundreds of women annually, while on tour during the height of his fame. He said in an interview that the affairs were never brought up. He was never confronted by Linda. He added, "I love being married to her and she loves being married to me." In 1963, Tom started his musical career as the main vocalist of Tommy Scott and the Senators, a Welsh beat group. When the band required a new singer after their former singer resigned, he received the offer. A bassist encouraged Tom to join him after recalling him playing at a nearby tavern. Tom consented to a few pounds and a beer. They began modestly, performing in South Wales working-class settings. They were initially run by 2 locals and even collaborated with well-known producer Joe Meek, but things didn't catch on. Disappointed, they went back to Wales. Then the pivotal moment arrived. After witnessing Tom's performance in a bar one evening, Gordon Mills, a manager from South Wales, saw his talent right away. Inspired by the popular film of the same name, he moved Tom to London and gave him a new name, Tom Jones. Additionally, the band changed their name from the Senators to the Playboys, and the Squires after that. Tom was brought in by bassist Vernon Hopkins, who remained close to him for years, until a falling out in 1969 led to Hopkins' firing by Mills. Those were difficult, early years in London. Living in a dilapidated apartment in Notting Hill, Tom and the band were crowded together and had little money for food. They once devised a last-ditch scheme to obtain food. A restaurant with a large enough restroom window for escape was located. After eating, they would slip out the back and flee. Tom even considered terminating it all, since things had become so horrible. He persisted nevertheless. he would have more than $250 million in value years later. However, the battle was genuine at the time, and it molded him. Another aspect of Tom's early career that had not before been made public was discussed in 2017. While the Harvey Weinstein story was in the news at the time, Tom said that sexual harassment of both men and women occurred in the music industry as well. He said in an interview that early in his career, someone tried something with him. He claimed it wasn't awful, only that someone had tried to pull. I replied, "No thank you." Although he did not give names, Vernon, a former bandmate, once talked of an unsettling encounter with producer Joe Meek. Vernon claims that Tom once yelled that he had been molested and fled Meek's residence. Tom subsequently said that although the encounter left him feeling awful, he just left and didn't see the individual again. A guy by the name of Gordon Mills entered a little Welsh nightclub in 1964. He was only a songwriter with a few songs under his belt, and wasn't a well-known figure in the music industry. However, he observed something unique that evening. A young Welsh singer named Thomas Jones Woodward and his band The Senators were on stage singing under the stage name Tommy Scott. When Mills heard the 24-year-old sing, he recognized raw strength. He lacked polish. However, he had a magnetic quality. Mills immediately had an idea. He persuaded the teenage singer to change his name to Tom Jones, dress smart in a tuxedo, and abandon his image from the adolescent club. Although the name was taken from a well-known movie, it was a fantastic fit for the man. Mills also observed the responses of elderly women to Jones. They took pleasure in more than simply the music. They desired to be near him. That sexual allure would play a significant role in Tom Jones' reputation. Mills secured him a contract with Decca Records shortly after. Chills and Fever, Jones' debut song, was released in August 1964. It was not a momentous occasion as it ought to have been. The procedure of recording was disorganized. Joe Meek, the original producer, created a few versions that were never made public. The label brought in studio musicians to remedy what they believed the band couldn't do when Jones eventually recorded the official version. Despite being energetic and loud, the last tune failed to make an impression. It was criticized for being overly polished. Even worse, the single didn't even make the charts. It briefly appeared as though Tom Jones may pass away before he could begin. It's not unusual followed. Everything changed with this second single. Initially the song, which was written by Mills and Les Reed, wasn't even intended for him. Sandy Shaw, who was then a rising star, was offered it. However, she offered Jones the opportunity to record it since she thought he had talent. It was audacious, brazen and memorable. It was not broadcast by the BBC. Jones sounded too seductive to them. However, Radio Caroline, a pirate radio station, played it continuously. That dangerous exposure was successful. The song became viral. Only a month after its debut, in March 1965, It's Not Unusual became the UK's #1 song. It rose to number 10 on the Billboard charts when it arrived in the US in April. All of a sudden, Tom Jones was a worldwide celebrity, rather than just a Welsh musician wearing a tuxedo. Mills swiftly brought him back inside the studio while riding the wave. In June 1965, they released Along Came Jones, his debut album. It peaked at number 11 in the UK, and featured a mix of covers and his breakthrough single. Once Upon a Time, his subsequent song wasn't as powerful. It kept his name out there even though it peaked at number 32. Then followed the heartfelt rendition of an ancient classic, With These Hands. It too failed to make the top 10. However, it gave a stronger performance, and demonstrated his vocal range. Tom Jones was requested to perform the song What's New Pussycat for a film starring Woody Allen and Peter Sellers in 1965. He was first reluctant to do it. The song, in his opinion, was odd and unlike his usual style. Instead of singing a funny pop song, Jones wanted to sing soul music like Wilson Pickett or Otis Redding. Christ, he even said, "For what in the world do they want me to sing this?" However, the well-known composer Burt Bacharach was adamant that Jones sing it. "I need a loud voice for this insane song," he informed him. "I need a voice of authority, since this is a bizarre movie." Jones finally consented. He put all of his energy into recording it. The strange little song became a great hit, because to his amazing voice, for 12 weeks it remained at number 3 on the Billboard charts. It became one of his hallmark songs because people adored it. Jones was given another significant opportunity that year. He was invited to perform the theme song for Thunderball, the latest James Bond film. And initially, it wasn't meant to go that way. Another song, Mr. Kiss Kiss, Bang Bang, had already been selected by the producers and recorded by 2 vocalists. However, they had to rapidly develop a new song since the studio requested that the phrase Thunderball be included. During the last take, Jones sang a long high note with such vigor that he almost passed out, according to Jones, who recorded it under pressure. He subsequently said that the room was spinning when I opened my eyes after holding the note for so long. Along with It's Not Unusual and What's New Pussycat, the song became another smash. During the British invasion, it made him stand out. Despite the fact that many British performers were gaining popularity in America, Jones stood out from the throng because to his powerful, deep voice. He won large in 1966 as a result of his growing celebrity. The Grammy Award for Best New Artist went to him. This was significant. It indicated that he was more than just a pop performer following a fad. He was a true talent, and he was now also well known in America. By that point, Jones had demonstrated his versatility in a variety of genres, including pop, rhythm and blues, and movie themes. Gordon Mills, his manager, desired for him to be more than just a showy celebrity. The Grammy helped open many more doors, particularly in America, where Jones would soon start singing in Las Vegas, but he was preparing for the long haul. However, not everyone liked his seductive appearance. His performances were deemed excessively rowdy by some, particularly when audience members hurled undergarments onto the stage. His management was aware that Jones needed to alter that perception if he was to have a long career. Thus, they made a fresh attempt in 1966. Green Green Grass of Home is a more subdued, poignant country tune that Jones recorded. It revealed another, more serious, and more sincere side of him. It was a huge smash that put him back in the American charts and at number 1 in the UK. He published Delilah, another dramatic ballad with a sinister backstory. 2 years later, people adored it, despite the fact that it dealt with murder and envy. It was memorable due to the tune and Jones's delivery. It became one of his most well-known performances, and peaked at number 2 in the UK. People's perceptions of him were altered by these songs. He was more than simply a hottie anymore. He truly had depth and breadth as an artist. This new image's success paved the way for even greater things. He had his own television program, This Is Tom Jones, in 1969. The program operated from 1969 and 1971, was simultaneously aired in the United States and the United Kingdom. It was significant, not merely well-liked. In addition to being the host, Jones received a Golden Globe nomination for his outstanding performances. At the time, it was nearly unheard of for someone to be paid $9 million a season. The show's amazing guest list helped it gain fame. Notable performers included Nancy Sinatra, Peter Sellers, Janis Joplin, Cher, Stevie Wonder, The Who and Ella Fitzgerald. With 15 energetic and musically charged episodes in the first season, the show was unlike anything viewers had ever seen on television. Jones began appearing in Las Vegas as his performance gained popularity. He became one of the city's biggest stars after being the son of a Welsh coal miner. He had a great first 18-month residency. After that, he proceeded to larger venues such as Caesar's Palace and the International. He was so well known in Vegas by 1974 that he was introduced by Elvis Presley during one of his own performances. "He's my favorite singer, and one of the best performers I've ever seen," Elvis declared to the audience. Fans were enthralled. Some even made the joke that they required binoculars to view his well-known dancing routines up close during a 1990 performance. Whether he sung or not was irrelevant to many. They really adored his enthusiasm. People kept returning to his concerts for years because of their intense musical talent and crazy enthusiasm. Jones gained notoriety for something else as well. At concerts, women began tossing him their panties. It all began in 1968 in New York's Copacabana. Some women handed him tissues to wipe his face since he was perspiring during a performance. One woman then went one step further and gave him her panties. The following day, the tale appeared in the newspapers and the trend gained traction. It intensified when Jones got to Vegas later that year. Even room keys were thrown onto the stage by fans. People joked that he might create his own Victoria's Secret store since he accumulated so much underwear over the years. It was still discussed by fans in the 1990s. One woman laughed at a performance, claimed she had considered doing it herself, and that it would be humorous if someone tossed panties on stage. Jones also developed a close connection with Elvis Presley around this time. Although they originally crossed paths at Paramount Studios in 1965, their relationship deepened in Las Vegas. Although Elvis seldom interacted with other performers, he and Tom bonded immediately. They would socialize, discuss music, and occasionally spend the entire night singing and playing guitar in private. Elvis once unexpectedly appeared in Jones' hotel room as he was showering after a performance with a brand new song he wanted to perform. Even Priscilla, Elvis Presley's wife, observed how pleased and different he appeared while he was with Jones. She claimed that Tom's obvious musical understanding of Elvis made a significant impact. He was thinking about more than just music, though. When he was in the height of his popularity, Jones and Mills founded Man Records in 1970. It was a daring step into the music industry and more than just a label. I Hear You Knocking by Dave Edmunds was their first successful release. They went on to recruit up-and-coming artists like Gilbert O'Sullivan, who released the label's first major album in 1971. Artists such as Engelbert Humperdinck and Lindsay DePaul went on to achieve greater success. Music wasn't the only thing MAM did. They also made investments in airplanes and gambling machines, demonstrating that Jones was a successful businessman in addition to being a vocalist. However, things started to alter by the late 1970s. The market began to be dominated by American labels. In the 1980s, MAM lost its competitive edge and was finally acquired by Chrysalis Records. Its catalog is currently held by BMG. In addition to being well known for his music, Tom Jones had several relationships with prominent ladies. Marjorie Wallace, who had recently won Miss World in 1973, was in one of the most talked about. They met backstage at the London Palladium when she was just 19 years old. Before long, Tom had purchased similar bracelets for Wallace and his wife Linda, whose birthdays were only a few days apart, inside the next month. When the media saw Tom and Wallace sharing a kiss on a Barbados beach during a Miss World TV show, the romance became a big scandal. The problem worsened when Wallace lost her crown as a result of the pictures. She was engaged to Peter Revson, an American race car driver, when it was revealed. After knowing that Linda was going to find out, Tom abruptly stopped the relationship. Wallace, who was devastated, overdosed on sleeping pills and had dialysis to get better. She was profoundly rattled by the incident, but she consistently maintained that it wasn't a suicide attempt. What had started out as a celebrity moment had devolved into something awful and agonizing. Tom had a lot of affairs. They were in actuality consistent. He had acknowledged having sex with about 250 women a year when he was at the height of his stardom in the 1960s and 1970s. He even has a dressing room specifically designed for meeting groupies. Tom was never renowned for being faithful from the beginning, according to his spokesman. Naturally, his marriage suffered as a result. The confrontation was intense after Linda learned about his romance with Mary Wilson from the Supremes. She physically attacked him, according to Tom, and he simply stood there and took it. They eventually reached an unwritten agreement. They didn't discuss his activities while he was on tour. However, Linda had her boundaries, and Tom asserted that the marriage wasn't open. He joked in one interview that she would injure him if he went too far, and not in a way he would like to be wounded. They managed to be together in spite of everything. Tom had a short affair with model Catherine Berkery in 1987 while on tour in the United States. The next year, she fell pregnant and gave birth to a son, Jonathan. A protracted court battle ensued as Tom denied being the father. He was identified as Jonathan's father via a DNA test ordered by the court. Additionally, a judge formally recognized it in 1989. Tom consented to pay for private schools and child support. He never did, however, meet his son. He claimed that the circumstances made him feel confined and stayed out of his way. He refused to discuss it at all for years. He didn't acknowledge that the court had been correct all along until 2008. Jonathan was 23 at the time and publicly pleaded for just one chance to see his father. "It would be awesome just to hear him say my name," he remarked. Jonathan didn't get that chance though, and Tom remained mute. All the way through, Linda remained. Growing up in Pontypridd, South Wales, she and Tom had been together since childhood. They began dating at the age of 15, and shortly before the birth of their son Mark, they were married at the age of 16. Linda stayed at home, away from the spotlight, and seldom accompanied him on trips. Tom never acted as though she didn't put up with a lot. He frequently claimed that she was his true love. He was constantly anchored by that one individual. To keep him modest, she reportedly warned him, "Don't try the Tom Jones bullshit with me, I married Thomas Woodward." Tom was devastated when she passed away in 2016 from lung cancer. As she requested, he sold their house in Los Angeles and returned to London. There could never be a history like the one he had with her, so he responded no when someone asked if he would ever be married again. By the middle of the 1970s, Tom Jones found himself in an odd situation. Although he was still well known around the world, his music was not as popular as it once was. "Say You'll Stay Until Tomorrow" was a surprise smash on the US country charts in 1977. It peaked at number 15 on the pop charts and topped the charts for a week in February. However, it hardly made a mark in the UK. His final big success for almost a decade would be that tune. It was difficult to accept. Jones had been one of the world's top stars just 10 years prior. He didn't enjoy that he was now mostly perceived as a Vegas act. He once claimed that even though I only performed for 2 weeks at a time, possibly 4 times a year, it seemed like I was always bleeding there. It didn't help him that picture lingered in his mind. His ostentatious attire and large-scale television appearances were vanished by the early 1980s. He sang sad songs that were only appealing to American country fans, earning him the nickname Old Warhorse from some reviewers. Gordon Mills, his longtime manager, passed away in 1986. Mills helped create everything from the ground up after finding Tom in a small Welsh club. Even Tom's breakout song, "It's Not Unusual," was influenced by him. It was more than just a personal loss when Mills died. The guy who steered his whole career was about to die. Tom took a chance. He gave his 29-year-old son Mark command of his profession. The majority of those in the industry believed it to be a bad idea. Despite his lack of expertise, Mark was able to see the issue. His father's appearance and mannerisms had grown absurd. Later Mark remarked, "We had to strip everything back." They thus took a big risk. The consistent Vegas shows that had generated revenue for years were cancelled. Instead of choosing safety, they opted for innovation. It was a wise choice. Tom performed Prince's Kiss on television in 1988 as part of the British electronic ensemble Art of Noise. His rendition was unvarnished, audacious, and vivacious. They asked him if he would want to record it with them. The outcome was a crazy, funky version of the song. It took off when it was released in October. The song topped the charts in Spain and New Zealand and peaked at number 5 in the UK, outperforming Prince's original there. An MTV award was given to the song video featuring Tom's new appearance and sound. Young admirers who had never witnessed him at his best suddenly took notice. "What Kiss did," Mark stated afterward. "Anyone who had doubts about Tom Jones was eliminated. Either you succeeded or you failed." It was a strong return for a 48-year-old artist who had been marginalized by the mainstream industry. Furthermore, it demonstrated that he was still capable of surprising people. To everyone's amazement, Tom Jones signed with Interscope Records in 1993. He launched a daring new record titled The Lead and How to Swing It at the age of 54, just as many of his contemporaries were losing their prominence. If I Only Knew, the first song, peaked at number 11 on the UK charts. It was a statement as well as a hit. Jones won over a far younger audience than his initial fan base when he sang it at the 1994 MTV Europe Music Awards. He wasn't simply an old-fashioned guest, he was the host. It was an unexpected album. Jones combined classic force with contemporary sound by working with musicians like Teddy Riley, Flood, and Jeff Lynne. In order to highlight his vocals and enthusiasm, he turned down the Vegas glitz for his album's premiere performance at the House of Blues. The majority of commentators agreed. While others thought the production went too far in trying to seem contemporary, Jones was still able to provide entertainment. He effortlessly transitioned between his recent songs and timeless hits like it's not unusual. Then, in 1999, there was Reload. This was a phenomenon, rather than just a resurgence. Not once, but twice. In 1999 and 2000, the album soared to the top of the UK charts. With 5 UK top 40 singles, it sold more than 4 million copies worldwide. The format was what set it apart. 15 duets featuring musicians from all across the world of music. Jones performed with the Stereophonics, Robbie Williams, and Van Morrison, among others. The CD has a new genuine tone, because each duet was recorded in the other artist's comfort zone. Sex Bomb, a very energetic song featuring producer Moose T, was the biggest success. It even appeared in an episode of The Simpsons, and peaked at number 3 in the United Kingdom. Reload did more than simply revive Jones. It restored his calm. Not only was he a legend, but he also produced hits, going platinum in 10 different nations. Jones also shone his sense of humor around this time. He played himself in Tim Burton's crazy science fiction comedy Mars Attacks in 1996. In the film, aliens attack him while he is performing, but he manages to survive the mayhem, and even pilots a jet to aid in the escape of others. The character was clever, but it was also silly and extravagant. It reminded them of his true fame while making fun of his Vegas persona. Among celebrities like Danny DeVito, Glenn Close, and Jack Nicholson, Jones stood out, and reviewers took note. Jones continued to change and grow even into his 60s. He collaborated on the song Stoned in Love with electronic music producer Chicane in 2006, a few weeks after Queen Elizabeth II knighted him. The song debuted at number 42 in the UK charts, soared to number 8 in its second week, and peaked at number 7. It was yet another successful and surprising move. A vocalist who could reach strong high notes without using a falsetto was what Chicane had been searching for. Jones was his choice, after considering a number of Welsh vocalists. His performance was unique. The chorus was forceful, while the lyrics were quiet and understated. Jones felt the song was powerful the instant he heard it, even if some people didn't first recognize his voice. "It's a proper tune," he said. "Not just current, but authentic and well-written." He marketed it by making live TV appearances on shows like Friday Night with Jonathan Ross and Top of the Pops, demonstrating once more that he was not just surviving the decades, but flourishing in them.